Welcome to A Slice of Home. I'm Jenn Shields.
And I'm Ryan Shields.
Come on inside. Ooh, I like this entryway.
It's nice and big, eh?
Yeah, the window above makes it nice and bright.
Unload some hockey equipment in here.
Yeah, the hockey equipment stays in the garage.
No.
Don't you love the feel when you come into a home and it has like the huge vaulted ceilings?
Well, it does, like the lights.
And the big windows, just all that natural light.
Yeah, no, it's great. There's a good spot for your hockey equipment over there.
Hockey equipment stays in the garage. Doesn't come in the house.
You gotta warm it up these cold days. You gotta warm it up in here. Hey there, I'm Ryan Shields.
And I'm Jenn Shields, and together we're a Shields Group with Royal LePage Martin Liberty Realty.
I've been in the real estate industry for coming up to 11 years now, which is kind of crazy to think about.
Yeah, and I think I joined, we can't remember, it was a blur with having a lot of babies at once, and I think it's maybe almost 7 years.
Yeah, 7 or 8 years now.
In the industry for myself.
Yeah, we have.
It's hard to believe.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how time's flying, but we
yeah.
Also, our crazy life, we have our 3 kids at home. So we got Brady, Ashton, and Maddox.
Yep.
9, 11, and 12.
9, 11, and 12, yeah.
And they're boys. They're busy boys. So they're not just 3 kids. They're 3 busy boys that keep us on our toes. That's for sure.
So we like to lead a fast-paced lifestyle. Normally, the last 10 months have really seen us slow down, but it's been great to spend a lot of time with family and a lot more time in our home and actually really getting to know our home on a different level too, which I think is maybe what a lot of people are feeling this year, spending a lot more time at home. We see lots of renovations happening, upgrades, and lots of moves in the market this year that we'll chat a little bit about.
Well, absolutely. I mean, like you said, a lot of people are spending time in their house, but not only spending time, but working in their house too, and trying to do workouts or kids doing gymnastics or hockey rinks in the backyard. This year has been a year of exploring our house more than ever and figuring out exactly what we need to live our lives. And I know that happens for a lot of people. So, I mean, that's going to be something I'm really excited to talk about a little bit is what a home is and what it all entails.
Which I think, yeah, like you said, that definition just shifted this year. It's not just a place to go to sleep and eat our meals, but it's a place that we're working and the kids are going to school out of home, and it's where our socialization is happening, but on different levels.
Well, like you said, a house is now an office, it's a school, it's a gym, it's a hockey rink, it's a gymnastics studio, it's a dance studio, it's multifaceted now, and that's what we're seeing. We're seeing a lot more of these bigger houses come on the market and sell, and more than we have in the past years. For that simple reason, people are spending a lot more time in their house and realizing what they don't like about their current house or what they're dreaming of in a new house.
People are just needing more space these days.
Well, and it's co-living, like you said, with our 3 kids, and we're moving 100 miles an hour. It's hard for us to find space where we don't have our kids one on top of each other at night when we're trying to just separate and calm down, and you need that extra space. It's becoming.
And let's be realistic, like mom needs her yoga space also. So we need to make
Mom
sure
always
that's
needs her space.
designated in a home as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, and even for us, like it's been we've been in our home 4.5 years and had visions of putting barn doors up on our office that's kind of connected to our main living space, and just never happened. But now's the year
we did order the track for it, so we're halfway there.
We have a need for that separation, so.
Yeah, no, and that's it. Just realizing what rentals we need to do and that. So
and we're just excited to be here with you, sharing about home ownership, what it means, what it entails, the process of buying and selling, the process of staging, and everything that comes along with that. So leading into the number one thing people need to know about home ownership.
Well, for sure, home ownership is a true investment, not only in money, but also in time in that. I mean, there's no better, in my mind, there's no better investment in the world than real estate, because over time, it's always going to have equity built up. Even if our market's not going up,
of course,
you're still paying down your mortgage. So 10, 15 years from now, you're going to have money to pull out of your house if need be. And that's just the number one thing people need to understand is how big of an investment it really is.
And how that investment can grow, but also recognizing the time and energy that does go into home ownership, and especially when someone's moving from renting to home ownership, and just recognizing that there will be upgrades and changes. There will be mechanical issues that need to be done. There's maintenance, there's, you know, the yard work if you're in a home with a yard. And so it's just really recognizing the responsibility that comes along with that investment.
Well, it's the same thing. If you're not willing to put work in, it's just going to get run down and your investment is going to deteriorate. It doesn't matter if the market's skyrocketing or not. If your house is falling apart because you don't know how to maintain it, your investment's going to disappear. So, I mean, that's something we want to touch on over the course of the show here is maintaining your house and home ownership and how to do some renos.
Yeah. And what renos to do. That's one we come up with all the time is renovations can be great, but sometimes time and money and energy will be put into the wrong type of renovation that won't actually bring you an increase in value. So we're going to chat about that. Like, if you're looking at putting some money into your home, what should you be focusing on, and where are you going to see that return on the back end when it's time to sell?
And I think something else we got to touch on when it comes to renovations is not only the return that you're going to get immediately or financially, but if you're moving into a house and the return you'll get from a quality of life.
Absolutely.
So maybe for me, I want to have a quote unquote man cave in the basement so I can hang out and watch the hockey game, or the boys can play video games. That might not get us a big return down the road, but I'm going to enjoy it a lot more right now. I'm going to enjoy living in the house. Or, I mean, maybe it's a fancy shower. I love my showers, so a nice big shower and tiled shower and that's gonna, yes, it will get us a good return, but I'm also gonna love every morning when I wake up and have a shower in this fancy shower.
For sure, and I think that goes back to the investment, thinking about it. It's also an investment in quality of life and an investment in lifestyle. So when purchasing, thinking about what that means for you.
Well, I mean, like, for you, you're looking at where you can put your yoga mat down and where you can spend some time, and which is fair. So, I mean, that's something to also consider when doing renovations, and that is what's your quality of life and what are the features that make you happy, and creating that environment for you.
Absolutely. So we're so excited to be here to share as much knowledge as we can about home ownership, about buying homes, and about selling homes. And one of the things we see so often is misconception. So a big part of our role with our clients is just educating them about what to expect, about the process, about how things might have changed in the time since they purchased their last home, and especially with those first-time buyers, is just really giving them all of the information and tools that they're going to need, so they're really informed before heading into the process.
Well, the common saying is you don't know what you don't know, and that's what we're here for, is to share our knowledge, share our experience, and what we know in the industry, so you do know it. Because the last thing you want to do when you are looking at buying a house is go into something that you don't know and you're not comfortable on. So we're here to help educate you and share some stories along the way with you. And I mean, we'll just get right into some of the most common misconceptions that we've come across in our day-to-day lives with real estate agents. And I'm going to say first and foremost is the cost of it all. There's definitely, when you're buying a house and when you're selling a house, there's closing costs.
Yeah, so, you're right. Like, just the cost of actually purchasing a home. So there's the cost of the home, but the other costs involved. There's a home inspection. There's sometimes an appraisal cost. There's your lawyer fees.
Land transfer tax.
And the land transfer tax is a huge amount. Usually about like 1.5% to 2% of the value of the home is just paid in a land transfer tax.
Well, that's something we always say is when you go to purchase the house, you have your down payment, but then you also have to have another 2% of your your purchase price just for your closing costs alone. And it's just easier to have a little bit extra than be caught off guard.
Man,
but
for sure.
I mean, there's so many times people show up at the lawyers and they don't expect it, and then they're scrambling a little bit, and it creates a lot of stress when there shouldn't be stress in a situation if you're properly educated along the way.
Right.
The other thing I struggle with a lot now that we're getting people that we bought with 10 years ago coming to sell is the property value isn't maybe as high as they thought it might be. They've seen stuff on the news, they see what their neighbor's house is sold for, and it's not always tied directly to your house. There might have been extenuating circumstances with that sale, that might have drove the property value up or down. It might have just had fresh renovations and that. So
I basically think the thing is that property value doesn't always go up.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes down. And here in our market in Brandon specifically, we're in a pretty stable market. We have a diverse economy. We're not really driven by one economy like some big markets like Calgary with oil. So our prices stay pretty steady, but sometimes that steady means they dip down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a misconception. Another thing that we see is there's so many home buying, home renovation shows right now. They're everywhere. Like, it's totally trending for sure, but it is not realistic that we will show up with a list of 3 homes to see and we will go see them and they are all perfect, but you just have to choose the most perfect. Sometimes we'll see one home and the buyers will fall in love and that is the house for them. Sometimes we'll see 50 homes and still not find a good fit. So just, kind of coming in with expectation about what the home buying process should look like often sets our clients up for a little bit of disappointment, or it'll turn them away from a house that's a really great fit because it's the first one we see.
And the other piece to that also is, as a buyer, they feel they're being a pain in the butt to us if they see more than 3 houses. They don't understand that we're willing to put in the time. We understand the time it's going to take. But so we get a lot of apology text messages saying, sorry it's taken us so long, but it's a huge investment and we understand that. And all real estate agents understand that things take some time. But once we find the right one, then we're there to help you move on it.
And sometimes too, even within that, there's the adjustment of expectations. And this is something we see a lot with our first time buyers, especially our young buyers. They'll go in with these big expectations and then they actually learn what our market value is. And they realize that their big long wish list of all the things that they want in a home maybe isn't super realistic in their budget. So then that's where we need to just start adjusting that a little bit. So it certainly is something we see for sure.
Well, and it's interesting you talk about the TV shows with all the home buyers and everything on it. My favorite show that used to be out there was a home inspection show. And it created such unrealistic expectations for home buyers that when we talked about home inspections, they thought literally we were going to be cutting holes in walls and looking at the insulation and literally tearing a home apart at the seller's cost. That's not the case. A home inspection is probably the most important piece to me for peace of mind for a buyer. Right. And it gives you a really good knowledge of the house, but at the end of the day, it's not something where you can see behind walls, you can start cutting holes or anything. You can get to the attic, we'll look at plumbing, we'll look at the electrical. If there's not a foot of snow on the roof or sheer ice, we'll get on the roof to look through the shingles and everything. So we get a really good idea of what that house is that you're buying. But it just sets the expectation that you have some work to do probably. And I mean, it doesn't matter if it's a new house or a 50-year-old house. There's going to be a laundry list of things, but most of them can probably be done with $200 and a screwdriver in an afternoon at Home Depot, just grabbing some, could be electrical outlets. It could be just anything to finish off some small little changes to the house. But
for sure. And I think we're going to get into this a little bit more, maybe not even a misconception, but again, that expectation you're going to walk in and the home is going to be totally turnkey. And so again, just aligning the expectations with reality and recognizing we like to point out some of the things that maybe aren't on the surface. So we find buyers often get caught up in the shiny, polished look of a home, and they're maybe not looking a little bit deeper than that to see if the home is actually has good bones and stuff. So.
Well, and they also, on that note, kind of talking about renovations and that, don't realize how intense renovations can be. Especially if you have 3 kids and you have sports going on and you're working and you have completely your whole life still, and trying to live through a reno is not fun. It's not for everybody, but...
And the mess involved. We can speak to that. We did a huge reno on our home, and I mean, this is what we do.
You moved out for 2 months.
And it even, we didn't even really know what to expect. So
it's a big process, but I mean, it's such a way that you can customize the house to exactly what you're looking for. It does help bridge that gap when a house might be a little bit below your budget, but gives you some time to customize it and make it exactly your own. So, I mean, I'm really looking forward to talking about renovations and where we can create some equity or help create some equity for your house, whether it's just living in it or looking to sell it right away. Alrighty, so we've talked your ear off enough about everything. So let's go take a look around this house and see what a house showing looks like.
Yeah, give you an idea of what to look for in a home. So definitely when you come in, you notice the colors, the style, the appearance of the home, but also it's important to recognize how you feel when you step in the front door. What does the energy in that house feel like for you? Can you imagine yourself living there? And as you walk through, just begin to kind of imagine this were your home and you're moving through your everyday life. And does it feel good for you? The style we're in right now is a cab over style.
Yeah, so I mean, the thing I love about a cab over is when you come up, you come right into the kitchen, and then as parents with kids, you have your master bedroom kind of up on a different level. So it's a little bit of ways away from the action of the main floor and from the basement and that. So I love the cab over style. I love the way it just situates with the ensuite,
nice
the big walk-in closet. It's got a lot of features that I love about having in a master bedroom.
Yeah, it's like a little parent cave tucked away from the kids. Although one thing that we've seen is that for families with really young children, it doesn't always feel great because the kids' bedrooms are on a separate level and not right close to mom and dad. Yeah,
so you're absolutely right. You are a few levels away from the kids in that, but.
And one of the biggest things, I think, especially this is when we're working with younger or first-time buyers, is that they often will forget to look at the actual structure of the home. That they'll be more caught up in the appearance and how things feel and look, and not be thinking as much about the foundation, the shingles, the electrical, the plumbing, all those things that maybe don't seem important, but are actually really big, expensive items if they need to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Way more expensive than a can of paint.
Absolutely. But as we're walking through here, one thing we always say to our buyers is get a feel for the layout of the house. So you have to take a walk through the entire house and see how everything's laid out. I know we touched on it when you first come in the house, but it's a very crucial piece of it.
Yeah, just thinking about the functionality for you and for your family in this space.
Yeah.
So let's go head on downstairs and have a little peek in the utility room. Get you an idea what to look at. We're just going to touch on it today because we're definitely going to circle back to this topic in a whole other episode.
One thing we like to say too is we're not necessarily experts when it comes to all this stuff. There's definitely people we can bring in, but we do know what to look for a little bit right off the hop. So,
yeah, and definitely to hire that expert to come in.
Absolutely. And one of the first things we always look at is the age of the furnace. Just kind of take a peek at it, the style of the furnace. We don't know the exact age of it, but we can tell a basic.
And if it's natural gas or if it's electric, because that'll tell you a little bit about what your hydro cost will be as well.
The hot water tank.
Hot water tanks, they say usually a lifespan of roughly 7 years. So just getting an idea of the age of the hot water tank, if that's something that might need to be replaced right away.
Seeing if there's any corrosion happening on the tank at all, see if it's wearing down.
Yes, evidence of water. And then of course the electrical panel, and I am definitely not an electrician or even anywhere close to it, but I've been in enough home inspections to know one of the things to look for is to make sure that the panel isn't completely full. Because if it is, that means that if you want to ever add a switch or a plug anywhere, you're going to have to add in a whole other panel. And also just to have a look, this one's done so neat and tidy, clearly done by a professional electrician that's lined up. If you see the panel and it's a bit of a mess, that's definitely a red flag and something that you want to have somebody come in and make sure that your electrical is done properly.
One of the other things coming to utility rooms great for is it's one of the only places in the house we can get a decent look at what the actual structure of the house looks like. There's some exposed framework. There's maybe some piece of the foundation that's showing. It's one of the only places where we can see a good look of what that foundation's looking like.
So again, we'll be covering this in a later episode, all the details about what to look for with regards to structure and mechanical, electrical.
Kind of problem items and stuff as well.
Stuff to have a peek for.
The other thing that I love looking forward to in a house is the basement rec room. This is what I've always loved in a home, and this is where I like to spend a lot of time, is down in the basement. And so just coming down here and seeing how it feels, seeing how warm it is, and where I could put a TV, where the boys could set up their PlayStation, just kind of where we could hang out as a family?
So we all know that 2020 was quite the year, and one of the questions we get asked most is like, what's going on in the market? What's happening? So after the initial lull in March,
I remember we talked about like, what are we gonna do? The first lockdown, we could have went away and left my phone at home and not missed a thing.
It was just crazy. 2 months, nothing much happened. If a bit moved, because I mean, real estate is essential. If someone has sold their home and hasn't bought another home, they need to, because they need someplace to live. But so probably end of April, things started ramping up. But year over year, 2020 actually ended up seeing about 13% more sales than 2019, which if you think about it is pretty crazy, because there was 2 months where basically nothing was happening.
It was, as soon as it started to go, like it was crazy. Like the inventory dropped. It's turned into such a seller's market because there was no inventory, but there was lots of buyers. The interest rates I've never seen them this low before. We're talking at one point, they were 1.5 you could get a mortgage rate for, and it's just completely unheard of. And people are taking advantage of it. I think a lot of the buyers came because sports and recreation was canceled. You couldn't go on trips, so everybody had some disposable income that they invested in their house. We talked about people realizing that
they're spending way more time in their home than usual, and because they're not out and about and they're not going on the vacations, and they needed a home office space, or they needed somewhere for the kids to be, or they needed that home gym space.
Well, right? And like the market part that we saw take such a huge increase in sales this year, which floored me. It was $400,000 and above. It was the busiest year since the last 5 years in that price range. I think we were up just over 30% from 2019, and
for the number of houses. So home about like this, there was 30% more sell over 400,000 in 2020 compared with 2019. Like that's a huge amount of real estate moving in that upper price range.
Well, I remember just a couple years ago, we'd be talking about homes in Brookwood, and there you had a huge selection. You could drive through, and there would probably be 20 to 30 houses at any given time on the market. If you drive through right now, you'll maybe get one or two that are on the market. It's pretty mind-blowing to think about it, given everything we're going through, what our market's been doing. But it's a very, very aggressive real estate market right now.
Yeah, so with that, we did see increase. The average price sale went up about 3.7%, which actually was maybe a little lower than we'd expect because there's so much more moving in that upper price range, but still to see that adjustment. The few years before that, we maybe saw a little bit of dip the other direction where the average price actually came down or stayed pretty level. Yeah, no, the biggest surprise to me right now is just the inventory. There's very low inventory numbers compared to what we've seen in the past. There's lots of buyers out there. There's just not the houses to pick from. So, I mean, if we're forecasting into 2021 just a little bit, I got to think we keep moving through very similar to what 2020 was doing, simply because the inventory numbers. Again, it becomes that supply and demand thing, and there's lots of buyers, just not the inventory. So when something good comes up and it's priced properly and marketed properly, it's going to sell. There's no question about that in my mind. Absolutely. Well, you can't fall in love with a home without falling in love with the neighborhood, and that is something we're going to touch on in a future episode. Thank you so much for joining us for Slice of Home, and we'll see you next time. See you later.